Hello, good morning. Today we are going to see chapter number 3 from the unit number 3, wildlife management and the conservations. Let's see wildlife. More and more time I have explaining that word wildlife. That means it is the plants, maybe animals, bacteria or the microbes that living in the wild condition. That means a forest, in the forest condition, living or that natural habitat, that is considered as a wildlife. That may be a desert, grassland, or the all living things in a is a undomesticated form is considered as a wildlife. Wildlife as a resources. As we explained previously, forest it is a resource, and how there are resources. So wildlife it is a one type of a resources. Wildlife resources include all animals which grow, propagate, naturally without any sort of a human interference. They are a remains wild form without any sort of a friendly association with a man. Invariably, there are the forest wildlife serve the resources to maintain the ecological balance as well as a source to entertainment, beside the acting of a source to produce the meat, skin, or other animal products. And the animal species like a lion, tiger, cheetah, deer, bear, jackals, and the number of wild birds are included in the wildlife wealth. That are the wildlife and their structure or the compositions. The categories for the classification of extinct. A species extinct when there are the no reasonable doubt that last individual has died. To call as a species extinct, there must have be a survey carried out and look the species across previously known range. The survey need to also consider the life cycle of the species and the time year when the might be located there. Extinct in the wild. Extinct in the wild, the species is extinct in the wild when known only survive in a cultivation captivity or as a naturalized population outside range. They can all once live in a calling a species needs the there are to have a no similar survey those done for the extinct species, that is known as a extinct in the wild. Then critically endangered, the species critically endangered when all evidences shows that the species meet at all least of one of the IUCN criteria A to E, that is critically endangered. It is then be a extremely high risk of extinction in the wild, that is considered as a danger. That means a critically endangered, that is endangered. The species endangered when all evidences show that is a meet the at least one of the IUCN criteria A to E, that is the endangered species indicate that facing the high risk of extinction is a wild. Then vulnerable that indicate that is a facing the high risk of extinction in the wild. Then data deficient, that means a DD. The species data deficient when there are the not enough information make direct or indirect assessment of its risk extinction based on the distribution of a population. Data deficient not a category of the threatened species, but the data deficient species should data deficient and well known there not enough specific data number distribution. Not evaluated, the species not evaluated when has not been assessed against the criteria. This may be because the species is a rare visitor to the territory or the taxonomy species recently changed or unclear. Then consumptive uses of biology or the wildlife. Consumptive uses, that means how we can consume or the human will be consume that. Consumptive use of wildlife from the ancient practices old as a humankind. Responsible development, human brain having been a support to livelihood most of the ancient civilization unable to survive for the many. For example, the hunter gatherer, trapper, rander, herder, Inuits. The modern man progressively distanced himself from using the wild animal as a dependence of a domesticated animal instead. That is nothing but a consumption. That means an animal that will be a consume or the plant that will be consumed by a human. Then economic importance, as we have discussed, there are a number of importance of forest, like a wildlife having the number of importance. Consumptive uses of wildlife, number of activity whereby the wildlife resources exploited by the removing the certain quotas, either the live or the dead animals. Non-consumptive uses of wildlife, the activity given or the value of wildlife without the removing the resources. The entire range of wildlife activity produces the revenue, bridge, added value added, contribute the gross national products, that is GNP, the value added national levels. It is considered the wildlife. Okay, that are the economic importance. Then ecological importance, as we have know, what are the ecology, that means study of organism and their environments. Okay, that is considered as ecology. And what are the importance? If wildlife, one of the plants or the animals will be removed from that levels, that will be a imbalanced condition. So it is also one type of importance. Human is a extractive activity in a tropical forest. The destructive process can trigger the numerous not completely understood mechanisms or the effects which will be turns into the more or the less significant way overall function of a structure, composition, ecosystems. Although every organism contribute the ecosystems processes and the nature magnitudes of individual species contribute a very considerable. Most ecosystem processes driven combined activity of many species, and plant diversity herbivory patterns among the various processes depends upon the process of a fauna. That means every individual are the important. Then importance of wildlife in India. How important wildlife for the India rich varied fauna. There are about the 75,000 species of animals, which 340 are mammal, 1,200 are the birds, 420 are the reptiles, 140 are the amphibians, and the 2,000 fishes, and the 50,000 insect, 4,000 mollusks, and other invertebrates. Fauna and flora of India are the highly diversified into many beautiful varied forms. There are the number of forms like kasturi, elephant, rhinoceros, musk, cheetah, Hoggians, Indian chorotins, Barasinga, Sambaur, Chosiga, Nalinga, wild buffalo. That is number of wild animals are presented, and that are their own importance. Endangered species in India. Endangered species. The species are most severe. The threat extinction require direct human protection for the survivals. That means the species require for their protection by human. For example, mammals, lions, tail monkey, pigtail monkey, Nigeria, Indian pangolin. That nothing but the number of species require endangered need protections. Then threatened species. Threatened species is considered as abundant certain areas face to the serious danger cause unfavorable environmental condition, extensive hunting, fishing, and the trapping collectively by a hobbyists or the game birds. Rare species, that are the very small population, they live in a protected environment area like a game birds. Then in situ conservation. What is my in situ conservation? The conservation inside their own habitat. The conservation of ecosystem or natural habitat, maintenance, recovery, viable population of species, their natural and the surrounding, and in case of a domesticated or the cultivated species in the surrounding where they have developed their distinctive properties. It has been considered globally endangered, and the conservation depends on the species listed. The schedules of Wildlife Act 1972 India and Appendage first of cities, considering the importance of importance and the impact of a Sundarban tiger reserve had been established for the in situ conservation. Royal Bengal tigers and other indigenous species, that is nothing but that species will be preserved in that natural climates, that is considered as a in situ conservation. Purpose and the use of in situ conservation. In situ management approaches either the targeted population or selected species or whole ecosystem. Both approach follow the same purpose, to enable the biodiversity maintain itself within the within the context of a ecosystem which may be found. The example of in situ conservation, protected areas in situ conservation. The protected area, it is a network may be a contribute conservation of targeted through a maintenance of a target species and their habitat, as well as the conservation of natural semi-solid natural ecosystems. That is considered as the example of a in situ conservation. The guideline of a principle that no involving the species, however the insignificant, useless, it may be a following: propagation, captivity, gene bank preservation, genetic material cloning, resurrection of species may not may have gone extinct. That is considered as a in situ conservation. Techniques for the ex situ conservation. Ex situ conservation, it is nothing but target the plants and animal population. The techniques vary according to characteristic species to be preserved and dictate the types of material preserved. Ex situ collection, plants establish the storing the seeds, conserving the pollen grains and the growth. Ex situ techniques are the applicable animal population include the storage, embryo, semen's, DNA, capitative breedings through any establishment that we have to conserve. That may be a national park, wildlife sanctuary, conservation reserves, community reserves, marine protected areas. Then scare plants and animals. As we have listened about the Devrai. Devrai, it is nothing but it is a area are protected as a name of a god. We consider as a Devrai, and there is number of plants are protected due to their god or the religious importance, like Ficus religiosa, Prosopis sinifera, Ficus bengalensis, because due to their religious importance, or the ossimum sanctums, or we consider as plus that plant are will be protected as per the gods. Wildlife management. Wildlife management interdisciplinary. Interdisciplinary protected the endangered, threatened species, subspecies, and their habitat, as well as non-threatened agriculture animals and the game species. That is considered as a wildlife management. Sustainable use of wildlife. Sustainable wildlife management (SWM). That is a sound management. Wildlife species sustain their population habitat over a time, taking into the account of a socio-economic needs of a human population. So that is known as the sustainable use of a wildlife. That life or that plants and animal are used for the human, you have to manage them. So that is considered the sustainable. Other specific contribution for the conservation. 22 countries. Ago the Emperor Ashoka decreed that it was the kind duty or king's duty to protect the wildlife of trees of forest. He got a edict and inscribed on rocks and iron pillars throughout the kingdom of prohibiting destruction of forest and killing the various species of animals. This historic evidence surviving this day first are recorded measure the conservation anywhere of the world's more recent and the historical time. Mughal Empire, Babur, and the Guru Nanak hymns and the Barmasa that also have the give the importance related to the forest or the wildlife. Okay, this is about the chapter number 3 and the chapter number 4, wildlife and the wildlife resources and the wildlife management. Okay, you have any doubts or the any queries related to this point, please comment below the section.